the topics for today are my Land Cruiser was probably white at one time, and buyer's remorse. Let's start with buyer's remorse. I think that's more apropos when considering when you're buying used older cars, especially when they're nearing, well, especially the first one I bought, the Land Cruiser, it's nearing, 43 years old come next year in a couple months. And the second one I bought, which was an 1982 Land Cruiser, that one is 38 years old, which will be soon 39. So, buyer's remorse. I get that constantly now because every time I go to see my Land Cruiser, I see stuff like this. Holes in the damn floor. I knew this was going to happen. I was locked into, I wanted to buy this thing. I was locked in. I had to buy it. Well, I guess that got the better part of me, obviously. Was it still a good deal? Yeah, it was a good deal considering it was a running, driving, daily driver Land Cruiser. They didn't just pull it out of the weeds and say, oh, there's no engine. Whatever. That's X amount of dollars for it. Yeah, so what apparently over the years, from what I understand, is that it started out white. Okay? And then afterwards, someone said, you know what? I want to paint this sucker blue. And they painted it blue. Now, I don't know if they painted the inside dash blue. I don't think they did. I think they just painted the exterior blue and kept the interior white. That I think. And then over the years, instead of patching the floor like any normal person would do, they just painted over it or tarred over it or did some sort of coating over it and said, we'll ignore it. Oh, and they ignored it all right. And then later on, I think the last owners had it, and they said, you know what, we want to make it look like a taxi cab. And god dang it, they made it look like a taxi cab. Imagine that. And then they said, we want to lift it, but we won't do it properly. We'll just, put the leaf springs on top of the axles, which I think is the proper way of doing it. But they didn't do it right. And then instead of saying, hey, we'll put some axle extensions on, they said, nah, we'll just throw some washers on it to extend the wheels out further from the vehicle. Oh my God. But again, that's what happens, when you buy an older car. You buy the mistakes of others. And then you come in and try to correct those mistakes. And then, especially for this 1978 Land Cruiser, holy crap. Stuff just starts breaking on it. When I bought it, the gauge cluster worked. Every gauge worked. Now it doesn't. Why? No idea. But the mechanic in the restoration shop, they're like, yeah, we put power to it and it doesn't work. I'm like, how the hell is that happening? Well, that's a $300 or... Yeah, it was about $300 for the new gauge cluster. Oh, well. I'm kind of glad I did buy a new one just because the older one was sort of faded and had some corrosion on the dials. It worked, like I said, until it didn't. I knew the blower motor didn't work, and then I realized, until it was pointed out to me, the heater duct was missing off that. I found a heater duct for $100. Man, oh man. But that's the joy, I guess, of owning a older car that has the mistakes of many years tacked onto it and layered onto it, especially layered onto it. But that's to be expected. I knew this going in. I mean, when you buy a used older vehicle, stuff's gonna break on it. And if you keep poking around on it and keep looking at it, you're gonna find stuff that's broken, or missing, or installed incorrectly, or the wrong hardware installed incorrectly. That's the other one too. Is that, but yeah, like I said, every time I go to the shop to check it out, I go once a week, twice a week sometimes. Something's broken on it. Whatever. They said they're going to be done by end of November. I hope so, because I'm leaving in December for good. So we kind of need it done by then. Interestingly enough, today we found not the original rims for the vehicle, but we found rims for that vehicle that are like that would come off the vehicle. I wanted the solid, steel type. Can't find them here really. So I'm going to do the next best thing. I've found 4, maybe 5. I need 5, obviously, for the spare. I don't want to keep these ugly ass tires on them, such as these right here. Not good. They're wide. They barely fit, and if I hit a bump, they're going to hit the body of the vehicles, and that's not a good thing. And yeah, the person who daily drove this Land Cruiser drove those tires that are pretty much made for off-road on the road. What do you expect? But yeah, like I said, and then over here, these are my. I had these. This is a '78 Firebird and an '88 Firebird. I had those when I was in my 20s. I hit a deer with that red one. That's another good story I need to tell one day. That's why the if you look right here, real close, the headlight on the left side is broken. Well, I mean it still works, sort of at the time. And then the '78, yeah, it looks good until you look underneath, and it looks like my Land Cruiser's floor. Everything had holes and rust, and because it was driven up in Michigan. So if you can imagine what happens up in Michigan during the winter, they don't call it the Rust Belt for nothing. And I bought this Firebird, the '88. I bought that one in Tennessee when I was in the Army. So that was a pretty interesting pickup. You know, I was stupid and I got a loan for 25% interest rate. Yeah. But I paid it off. I got it refinanced and paid it off to a lower interest rate, obviously, because it was stupid. I think I told my dad about it. He goes, "Dude, because you need to get a better interest rate on that sucker." I did. I really did. But I wanted it. It's one of those things. If I want something, I'll just go out and buy it. You know, damn be the interest rate. And then I paid I think $2,000 for that '78. Forgot what I paid for the red one. I think I paid $7,000, something like that. Unfortunately, the red Firebird, that one had 120,000 miles on it when I bought it, and guess what engine it had? Yeah, it had the 2.8 V6. And then this '78 Firebird, it was a '78 Firebird Esprit, and it had the original 350 in it, and it had the owner's manual to it, which was kind of cool. And it had, when I bought it, it had 68,000 original miles, and so that was the '78, and I bought that in 1996. So for 18 years, you know, they didn't really drive it that much. So I think it's 18. We'll call it 18 years. Yeah, call it 18 years. So again, with these cars, these older cars, used cars, you're obviously going to find problems, and I had many problems with them. Obviously, for instance, the red Firebird there, I didn't have to change the oil. Why? Because I always leaked out the rear main seal. But it didn't leak a lot. It just leaked enough to where I had to check the oil like every week or so. The '78 though, that sucker, that was a good running engine, but the heater cores rotted out of it, you know. And then with those years, they built the car around the heater core. So if you wanted to replace it, you just didn't. So I just bypassed it, you know, with a rubber hose, because I was like, oh, screw it. And the radiator rotted out of that too. So I found a Chevy 1973 Chevelle radiator. It was a 1/4 inch too wide on each side, so I just jammed it in there and went and that was kind of cool. But back to the Land Cruisers and buyer's remorse. You get buyer's remorse, but then you know what? You sort of like you get past it, I guess. I think that's the correct term I'm going to say. You get past it. You just like, whatever. You know, you knew it was going to happen, and then that's just the way it is. And I think that I need to look at the brighter side of what's going to happen. I'm going to have a really cool daily driving Toyota Land Cruiser eventually. But right now I'm focusing on all the money that I'm putting into it. You know, the restoration, the parts, the broken things I find on it. That's the problem about it. But again, I think there's the term is, or the phrase is, not acknowledging the forest for the trees, I guess. I think that's the word. I'm not acknowledging, or I shouldn't, when I pay it out of pocket for something, you know, for like $100 here, $40 here for a part that's missing, you're just like, man, but you don't. But I don't really look forward to driving that thing every day. I think that's part of the issue is that I should focus on the good aspects of what I have instead of the negative aspects. I think that's you're gonna hit buyer's remorse, obviously, especially when you're paying for it, you know. But again, let's say even with buyer's remorse, it could actually get worse for you. Let's say that the engine is fouled up, or you threw a rod through the oil pan or whatever. That would be a problem, you know, something catastrophic. And then you would really buyer's remorse would really hit in. And so I don't know. I'm rambling on too long about that, but I just thought I'd just talk about that because it's sort of an, you know, you come across this every once in a while when you're paying for stuff on it, and you're just like, oh man. But again, I should focus on, or you should focus on, maybe perhaps the aspects or the joy of owning an older car that you don't have to hook to a computer to, you know, figure out what's wrong with it. You know, it's a naturally aspirated carbureted engine, so if it doesn't work, the battery must be dead, or there's not enough fuel getting to the thing, or there's a clog in the fuel line or something like that. It's pretty easy to diagnose instead of these newfangled 2015 Toyota Highlanders that, you know, can bleed their brakes, you know, with a computer that you don't have, so you have to take it into the dealership or whatever. But again, probably, and I hope like to convey this, is that just focus on the joys of having an older car instead of the unfortunate aspects of owning an older car, which is replacing most, if not every part of the car that breaks.